Family, thank you once again for joining us
Yeah.
for lesson 22 in the Believer's Authority series entitled Honor God. Tonight's lesson is entitled Honor God. Now, before when you hear that phrase honor God, what do you think that means? What does it mean to honor God?
It means to prioritize. Number one.
Ooh,
First priority.
ooh, that's good.
That's good.
Prioritize.
Esteem.
Okay. These are good. Because when we prioritize or we esteem someone or something, we put it at the top, right? We consider it first. So for us to honor God is for us to put him first, to esteem him, right? So this is good. Let's go to point 1. It says, when you cooperate with God's spiritual laws, his power flows. Point A, when you disobey them, it stops the power from operating. Point B, again, we see this very clearly in Mark 5 with the woman with the issue of blood. So let's go there. Let's go to Mark 5, verses 25 and 26. Mark 5, verses 25 and 26. A certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. Now she spent all that she had on many physicians, and got no better, but grew worse. Now point C says that this woman was determined. She had to be. You think about the situation. She did all that she could in the natural. Everything that she had. She go to Dr. X, Dr. Y, Dr. Z. They took the money. They did what they could, but what they could fell short. In verse 27, I'm going to read the whole verse here. It says, when she heard of Jesus, she came in the press behind and touched his garment. In verse 28, for she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. What do you see there?
I see a desperate woman. Just for her to go out in the crowd, she would have been considered unclean, and they could have killed her. So she was going to get her healing. You know, she went out, pushed through those people, and got to him.
I love the amplified. She kept saying,
Mm-hmm.
if I just get to him, if I just get to him, if I just get to him.
Mm-hmm. Because you can see that it would have been easy for her to give up and to cave in after she had done all that she could in the natural to be healed. I mean, you're talking about 12 years. It's over a decade of dealing with the issue. And it, over that span of time, when you're dealing with, especially when you're talking about health challenges, it's so easy for that to become a part of your very identity, and who you are. Like, okay, this is me and my so and so. I know you've heard people say my diabetes, my cancer, my fibromyalgia, my MS, taking ownership, claiming it like it's a pet. But you could be dealing with something for so long that you connect with it.
Yeah, by that time it's probably in your mind, God, it's God's will.
Well, if you're going to churches, they're preaching that for sure.
Right.
For sure.
We pray for people
And you know the healing power went into them. And as soon as you're done praying, they just go back to talking about what they've been talking about all these years. Well, this is how I got that, and you just got healing power going into you, and you're rehearsing the same stories you've been telling for
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
And just contrasting to what this woman did, it's like she was saying in her own mind, she said, if only I may touch his clothes,
Yep.
I
Mhm.
shall be made
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So she has that belief. She was telling herself in her thoughts, as
Mhm.
opposed to the words you're saying.
Mhm.
They may still be saying those words the whole time they're going through the process.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But this lady, she
Was convinced.
there was conviction, and she got immediate results.
You can see her at home saying, "I heard Jesus is here. Live or die. I'm going to go do this. I don't care if the Pharisees kill me.
That's right.
I'm going to go do what I believe I need to do."
She said,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I
Yeah.
shall be made well." It's like
Yeah.
maybe it'll work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe I'll be made well, or this is my last chance, or this none of that.
And she was risking everything to do it
Yeah,
Mhm.
because under that law, touching him would have made him unclean. Under
yeah,
that
but
law.
she didn't. She was only thinking, focus on Jesus
Yeah.
being Christ and
Mhm.
able to heal.
And that's it. And see, and it's kind of hard for us to understand how big of a risk she was taking.
Mhm.
I mean, a woman that was identified as unclean, being in public like that, in the first place. So she was wrong because anytime a leper or somebody who is having an issue of blood, they are supposed to pronounce their uncleanliness, right? And her being a woman, on top of all that, just being in that environment, that crowd, and she's gonna have the gall to go out and grab the rabbi,
Mhm.
grab at his garment.
He was
Dude, that's
not
called
just
that's called
walking by.
stuff. That woman had stuff.
That's
She was saying,
that's
"I'm going
gall on
to do."
steroids.
She was saying, "I'm going to do this." I like
That's
that.
right.
I'm going to meet that woman in heaven and say, "You go, girl."
I can see her looking through her clothes and saying, I can wear this. I can hide myself if I wear this.
Sold out.
Yeah, she sold out.
She
And
was.
and we gonna see as we progress through the lesson how that resolve to only focus on him that's truly how we honor him. We put
Mm.
his power, his word above anything else. That's if we want to honor him, that's how we do it. Because we say the scripture all the time. Hebrews says what? Without faith, it is impossible to please him. It's impossible.
And let it be done according to that faith. And it's interesting to me that when she was very specific, and she said, if only I may touch his clothes.
Mhm.
And that's what she did. She just touched his clothes.
Mhm.
And there's some other scriptures that said, "And all them that touched the hem of his garment were healed." I don't remember where they were. I'm wondering if it was after this, like this lady started a trend. I don't know.
There's that hem of the garment
It was
doctrine.
her faith that she thought, if I don't have to touch him. I just touch his
And he
clothes.
said,
That'll do
he didn't
it.
have to touch
He's
her,
that powerful.
Mhm.
Good-
right? He didn't have to
Yeah,
touch her.
just like the centurion who
Mhm.
said, "You
Mhm.
just say the word." I mean, he believed that way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's
I had a similar circumstance in my life, but not it was a healing, but I wanted to speak in tongues.
Mhm.
And to make a long story short, people told me about it, and reading books and everything. But what I had faith for, if I go to Victory Life Church, and it was in Hampton at the time, this was 10,
Still
15,
is.
20
Mhm.
years
It
ago.
still is.
there. If
Mhm.
I go there and they lay hands on me, I'll be able to speak in tongues. So I went and, then I told my son was going there. He told me, he said, Dad, they haven't called anybody to, come forward for that for weeks.
Mm.
But it was like, 0 doubt. Just, oh, that's it.
You get there, you're going to get it.
I mean, it was done before I got there.
Yeah.
In a way, and I think with this woman, this is a done deal.
Mhm.
Now Jesus, he had to come through.
Because it was already his will.
Yeah.
So she just connected. She's
Yeah.
connected.
The
She
demand on
on-
that.
yes, right. Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point too. Says you can't believe and receive from God without first somehow hearing of Jesus and his word. So that you see right back in Mark 27, she heard of Jesus.
Mhm.
So she heard of him. So in order for her to partake of his goodness, she had to first hear of him. Now we're gonna go to the very familiar set of scriptures. Go to Romans 10. Romans 10, starting at verse 14. I'm gonna read this in Amplified. It says, but how will people call on him in whom they have not believed? And how will they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how will they hear without a preacher, messenger? How will they preach unless they are commissioned and sent for that purpose? Just as it is written, and forever remains written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news of good things. But they did not all pay attention to the good news of salvation, for Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed our report? So faith comes from hearing what is told, and what is heard comes by the preaching of the message concerning Christ. So let's look at A. It says, if you want to increase and release your faith, you need to increase your revelation knowledge of God's word. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Or as the Amplified says, a message concerning Christ. Now B is a very short point, but a very profound point. Both faith and unbelief come by hearing.
Uh-huh.
Faith and unbelief come by hearing. And it seems like we can't go one study without talking about how important this is. This whole concept of hearing. Who are we listening to? Because the enemy knows the only shot he has is through deception, through developing unbelief, doubt. So if we're spending time here, then we're creating an environment in our own hearts where we can see in our spirit man's eyes. We're looking through that lens. So we're resistant to anything that's contrary in the natural. There's going to be a natural resistance built up to that.
Mhm.
But however, if I got one ear on the word, one ear in the world, there's a conflict. There's a conflict developing. Now, why do you think this is such an issue? Because whenever we talk about faith and unbelief, we always connect it with healing. Why is that such a prevalent issue? When we talk about people receiving what God has already established as ours. By his stripes we were healed. Right? Isaiah 53, Peter. Why is this such a battle for us to receive what God has provided for us?
It's funny, we don't have a problem believing for salvation because it's been preached for 50 years hard, television, radio, everywhere. but healing's been attacked hard. So I think a lot of people have a problem believing for healing.
Okay. So the message, the prevalence of the message. Okay.
I think it's with healing. You gotta see an outward. I mean, salvation. It's an inward thing, though it should see an outside. But
Mhm.
when you talk about healing, people looking for an outward, right there, a manifestation.
Right.
To see that, okay, it's happened, it's there.
Mhm.
Because if I don't see it immediately, then I'm assuming that I didn't get it, or people assume you didn't get it.
Mhm.
But we believe God and we can't see Him.
That's
Right?
That's right.
But we don't act
The
like
two.
it's two of the same things, two
Right.
peas in a pod.
Now,
But
Jesus,
it's a little different though, because like, you don't ever see God, but you can see that a healing has come about, like you were saying, the
Yeah, yeah,
manifestation
that's
at
true.
some point.
Mhm.
So it's like it's very specific. in that regard.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, you wouldn't want to say it and then you walk around for 20 years and you don't get the evidence of it.
Okay. Barricaded, I believe. When you look at the difference, because as Gene said, the message of salvation, from being delivered from hell by the work of Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection,
Mhm.
that has been preached vigorously.
everywhere.
Even sinners know that.
When Christ is preached,
Mhm.
that is the message.
Mhm.
He that shall believe, whosoever shall confess,
Mhm.
you shall be saved. That has been preached abundantly. So people have heard that, right? You talk about healing, it's different in twofold. Number one, this same message has not been proclaimed because they're theologians and Bible scholars and preachers and teachers have argued back and forth whether or not healing was a part of the new covenant, whether that was a new covenant right, whether that's something that us as believers could receive in the first place. So that argument, disagreement alone has created an air of doubt amongst believers themselves and people on the outside who have heard the bickering back and forth. And number two, when you talk about healing, you have to deal with the natural. You have to deal with that pain. You have to deal with the symptoms. They are in your face. So your natural senses are challenged. So when so-and-so lays hands on you and declares the word, it's God's will to heal, you receive that which has been bought and paid for you. All right? Now, if that manifestation is not instant, then the burden is on that person to guard their ears,
Yes.
their eyes,
Hold
their
on
heart,
to it. Yeah.
to hold on to that. And the problem is that unbelief that's around them has an opportunity to choke that out, to choke it out. Because just because a instant, complete manifestation didn't happen right at that moment doesn't mean that a seed wasn't sown. But the problem is what that person is being surrounded with after that, after the prayer, after they've sat down and seen the word, and they've received it. Okay, yes, this is what the word declares. It is for me. Once that revelation is received, it has to be protected, watered, or otherwise, the unbelief, either in their own heart and those around them, is going to choke that word out. It's going to choke it out.
And I read this chapter, and I was reading this, and Andrew said something I never thought about. He said when he was relevant to the woman that issued blood, he said that I said she went to the doctor, spent all her money,
Mm-hmm.
and he said when the doctors do that, and
Right.
people don't say anything. You spend
Mhm.
all your money, and they go, the thing,
Mhm.
maybe procedure after procedure, nothing works.
Because
People don't say that.
they're practicing.
But they say if
medicine.
a preacher do that,
Right.
then he's more of a harlot or he's taking the money. If a preacher says, "Give me your money and I heal you,"
Right.
people always say he's ripping them off. But when a doctor says that in the natural, we
Right.
just assume, well, we don't pay that attention. We don't
Right.
criticize him or he doesn't get ridiculed.
Right. So, say a minister gets up. He says, it's God's will to heal. We want to lay hands on,
Mhm.
all who are in need to agree with you that you will receive your healing.
Mhm.
Right. Now, before this, they taking up an offering. All right, just as normal church practice. All right, he preaches, then prayer afterwards. This person goes up, they get prayed for. The word is declared over them. They don't get any manifestation. Don't you know that person can go to Wavy TV10 or wherever and say, man, these folks out here, they out here this fake faith healing. I went up there, that man told me I was gonna get healed. I ain't got nothing. And I done paid my money and everything. Right? Now, number one, we know that what? The fruit of the gospel is not for sale.
That's right.
You can't buy it.
You can't buy it.
That's right.
Because even if you could, it's too expensive for you.
Mhm.
Jesus is the only one to pay for it.
Mhm.
He already paid for your premium.
Amen.
All right. So it's paid in full. Your debt is paid in full. He already did that. So let's get that out the way. And number two, what Andrew was talking about is so funny how if we don't see instant manifestation, people are ready to point to the preacher and call him a charlatan and all kinds of fake and phony and all this type of stuff. But a person can go to every doctor in the city
Yep.
and not get nothing but a higher insurance premium.
That's right.
But wait a minute.
and get no results. But nobody says anything.
But that's according to your word, right? That's how doctors operate, and everybody accepts it when you were walking in there. For those who do, many people don't,
They have disclaimers that you sign.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. You still get to choose to walk in there
Right.
and do business with the doctor you want. They are a little bit different because we know they are limited in that regard.
Mhm.
But Jesus didn't have those. He would have had the same problem if people had come to him, like this woman, and she had not been healed. And don't even add in a collection.
But you don't see any of that
Don't
about
even
that
add
time.
it- But I'm saying
They had
here,
no problem with healing.
don't
They had
even
problem with
add
salvation
a
back then.
collection in there. He didn't even add that in the verses. She just went up and got her healed because that's what she believed for.
Mhm.
So sometimes we try to make things a little bit ideal and think that someone who doesn't know God or Jesus or whatever is going to come in and get all the whole processes that you guys have taken years to learn. How would they know that? They wouldn't. They're trusting in faith oftentimes when they come.
Mhm.
And people will say these things definitively, and so they say, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. And it doesn't happen, and then they'll say, they took my money. If he's like he was saying, give me some money and I'll heal you, like who would say that? But maybe some people do. But that didn't sound good. But it's like, give me your money. His example was, give me your money and I'll heal you. I'm like, whoa,
I
that's
think
a
the
different.
deal should be, I'll pray with you, and if you get healed and you're blessed and you want to bless my ministry, help yourself. That should be it. It shouldn't be
Yeah, I agree.
shouldn't be
Yeah.
money up
Yeah,
front.
that
Yeah,
and let me
that
put this out there. It wasn't
different.
it wasn't presented like that in the book.
No.
It wasn't presented like that in the book. It just during dialogue it came out like that.
Mhm.
But the reality is, like you said, the expectation, because there's already a element of doubt when in regards to the practice of medicine anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no real, because people have gotten to the point where, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor just to get a little bit of relief,
Right.
right?
Till my manifestation shows up.
Yeah,
And see,
fine.
and the thing about it is, even when you go to physicians or whatever, they will give you worst case scenarios
Mhm.
to set your bar real low. So anything that above that is a relief to you,
Right.
right?
They give no refunds.
You know.
Mhm. Except about prescriptions.
And they bury their
And then they
mistakes.
reverse it.
And don't give refunds.
Right.
And the part about unbelief, I've been kind of a follower of Reinhard Bonnke, and everybody, watched him and everything.
Mhm.
Who is it?
Reinhard Bonnke.
The German evangelist who's had over 1 million people in a meeting at one time.
Saved,
How do we do it?
and they had
They had speakers lined up for miles.
hundreds of people filling out sheets, so it's not just an estimate.
Mhm.
Anyway, I watched the piles and piles of paraphernalia, aids, from crutches to everything, piles. And I always, what's going on? And I think Andrew really helped me with that, and that was, no unbelief. They're starting out as pagan. They don't have a religious
References.
baggage to be carrying with them.
Right.
They just find, Jesus, this is true.
That's why it's a sign.
This is
Yeah.
real.
Mhm.
So no unbelief.
I'd rather pray
No
for a
unbelief?
sinner than I would
No.
a Christian.
They don't have unbelief, because if they
Oh,
had
no, unbelief. I
no.
thought you said no one belief.
No,
Oh.
you unbelief. No, no disbelief or
Mhm.
unbelief.
Yeah.
And of course, it's in scripture to help me with my unbelief. I never, my lightning fast brain, I said, why would somebody want to help me with my unbelief? I already have plenty of it. I'm a little slow.
Okay.
But then I figured out what it meant.
Mhm.
Help me get rid of.
Because you think about that, because they, in these other parts of the world, there's a understanding of the reality of the spiritual world. How things operate
That's a good point.
in the unseen
Mhm.
realm.
On the
But
dark side.
We're senses or.
but us, we so intellectual.
Sense.
Everything has to be tangible by the five senses.
But you look at Jesus' time,
Point.
those folks didn't have a problem with him. They were following him by multitudes and being healed. But to have your sins forgiven, that was a big deal back then because it hadn't happened yet,
Mhm.
So that's why the Pharisees and Sadducees were going to go nuts as soon as he went to the cross. Now sin was going to be forgiven where he didn't have to earn it.
Mhm.
It turned everything upside down.
Just like these, when the situation where Jesus was in the house and the guy's friends lowered him from the roof, right down into his presence, and how the discourse that Jesus had with them, like, so that you can believe that I can forgive sins, this man be made whole, right?
They had the same determination that woman had to tear the roof off.
Right. Because what they did was, so the healing in that sense was the sign that, okay, the Messiah is present. And it is the Messiah that has the ability to what? Forgive sin. So truly the forgiveness of sin is the greater miracle. But in order for everybody to see God's power, what happened? This man was made whole, healed his physical body, because that's God wants to see him whole anyway, spirit, soul, and body.
And they were all sinners.
Right.
Everybody he healed was a sinner.
Right. But it's
He hadn't
kind of
gone
like
to cross
an
yet.
expectation thing
There you go.
too, though,
There you go.
because
There you go.
you can relax with the expectation that your sins have been forgiven, because nobody's going to know till you die. I mean, they might see, they might see changes in your life, but they're not going to
Right.
know it didn't happen until you die.
Right.
Where healing, you kind of expecting to see something along the way, if not immediate, pretty quickly,
Right.
and
And that's the thing, because anytime you
You're
talk,
tense over it.
when you're talking about the tangible blessing of God, your senses, what's going on in this natural world, can speak back to you. Can't nobody tell you, you're not saved.
That's right.
Because everybody that's alive, we are on earth. We are in the realm of time and space. Right? So there's no challenge there to your senses. But when you talk about healing, when you talk about financial prosperity, all these other the tangible blessing of God, you have to deal with what's in your face in the natural.
Because I've dealt with people who thought they were saved, and they weren't. They really believe based on what
Because
I
they go
guess
to
they
church.
heard. Right, they
go to
heard,
church.
or what. I've met a few. I've talked to a few where they got baptized when they were 3.
Mhm.
Water baptism, and they concluded that because somebody convinced them this is what salvation is. If you do this, you say. And so they were walking around thinking, okay, I have something, based on what I was told.
Mhm.
Do you ever put yourself in Jesus' place? Now, just think about that. If I was there, I thought, how would I respond? I'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden, dust starts coming down, tiles are falling from the roof, and I'd be saying, I've been invited here as a guest, and y'all are tearing the roof off the house.
That was his house.
But think about it.
That was his house.
Huh?
It was in Capernaum. That was his house.
It was Jesus' house.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I've heard.
he was thinking-
that was his house.
okay, you can tear my roof off. I'm just thinking in the natural.
I've been meaning to get that roof fixed.
Don't you think too, in our country, because we have such extensive medicine available for almost everybody, there's, for most people, that plan B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't work, I'll go to the
Mhm.
doctor.
Right.
So there's not that full commitment.
Because you're not under that pressure.
And you know what? Back when I used to get sick, going to the doctor to get relief of pain, that was a blessing. That was a blessing. Once God healed me of all that stuff and I didn't have to go back anymore, it was a bigger blessing. But when you're in like just searing pain and you can't think about anything but that, when you take something that relieves that, you go, oh. I mean, it is. I remember one time I was in the hospital and she talked them into giving me something nothing they gave me relieved pain. And finally they put something in the IV that relieved pain, some thin synthetic narcotic you talked them into giving me. And when they gave it to me and that pain started to subside, I'm sitting there and saying, Lord, I know the man that invented this, you gave him the idea. Because this has blessed me,
Right. Right. And the thing is, when we talk about healing and the reality of healing and how, we want to walk in divine health, doctors are not the enemy.
Mm-mm.
Right.
They are not the enemy. Doctors are, God can use them mightily because what they're doing is they're trying to help relieve suffering.
Yep.
Physical suffering. So
Supposedly.
it's well, if they take that oath seriously, that's what they are supposed to do. All right, that's the purpose. So it doesn't mean that they're the enemy, but it kind of, the reality is, and it goes back to our lesson, honoring God.
Yep.
Putting Him first. Now, I may not be in a place where I can deal with searing pain and just stand on my faith, and that's it. I may not be in that place, but the thing is, as I grow in my reality of who He is, I'm putting Him first. So even if I go to the ER, I go to the physician, I'm trusting in God to work through this human vessel. All right. But I'm putting my trust in Him and not the practice of medicine.
Right.
And that's a good thing to do because you can go south fast.
And really,
without
sometimes-
having a doctor and having the faith, because then Jesus got my back.
And sometimes if
It's
you're
like, why do we say grace before we have to eat this.
If you're in really bad pain sometimes, you can't pray. I mean, you can't pray the way you should pray or believe the way. All you can think about is how bad you're hurting. And I had a migraine headache for 3 months, and I remember every time my heart beat was like a knife going in my brain. And I remember I was in the hospital, and I'm thinking, I want my heart to stop beating right now. I just want to get out of this. I can't take another heartbeat because it was like boom, 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 like being shot in the head. And thank God I got out of that, and now I'm believing God for everything. But there were some times there that were just miserable.
Because pain will do that to you. It'll distort your
Mm-hmm.
your perception. I know I had this sciatica thing one time. Dear God,
Oh yeah, that's bad.
dear God, that nerve pain
I know.
is on another level,
I
man.
had surgery
Yes.
for it.
It's like, my goodness. And I'm like on the floor,
Mhm.
like just, I'm trying to find any position I can that is like
Mhm.
somewhat not as
Yep.
discomfortable. You know, I was dealing with this thing for, it was like 6 hours. But I'm trying to do anything to keep my mind off
Yeah.
of how
Oh,
bad
yeah.
this
Oh
feels.
yeah.
So I'm pulling up YouTube, looking at Christian comedy. I got the word, my healing scriptures on, praying in tongues, all this stuff. I mean, because the pain's like, dear God, this is crazy. But eventually, well, about the end of that 6 hour, things became unbearable. So I could actually stand up and walk around.
I never got better till they cut me. And they postponed the surgery, so I had to go through an extra month of it. But I remember I was laying over a footstool one morning, and my kids came out, and I had one kid grab my leg and hold it up, and one kid grab my arm and hold it up. So I'm laying over a footstool's on my belly, and they're holding me up like that, and they're saying, "How come you gotta be like that, Dad?" And I said, "It's the only way it won't hurt." And I mean, it was,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I had it for months, so.
I'm gonna give a quick testimony, but for my wife, positive testimony about Doctor. She can take a lot of pain, first of all,
Mhm.
fourth degree black belt, you just, anyway, I don't know where. Anyway, she was, one day at school, and then started having terrible pain inside, then writhing on the floor. Finally, she ended up in the hospital, and doctors thought that she was just hypochondriac or something. Didn't believe it. And finally, talking about the doctor's feeling around, and he stopped and started to leave. And then something made him go back and check a little further. Well, he found out she had a twisted intestine. It was gangrene.
Mhm.
My brother died from that.
She had just a few hours
Yeah.
to live. With that, of course, they cut out 18 inches of.
Yeah, my
But there
brother
was a
died
doctor.
from that.
He's listening to the Lord, because he said, I was ready to just give up.
Mhm.
And he went back and he got that. From God. I didn't know any of this going on,
Mhm.
but it was just, so there's, there are places where, positive note for God's design. I found it out when I was playing tennis, middle of winter,
Mhm.
and man, the hip, something in the hip, a lot of pain. Enough, and I don't take anything. I was piling it, maybe this one did not, I don't take anything. Don't want to be messed up trying to fly. And pain was so bad, I passed out. When I passed out, when I started to go,
Mhm.
pain went away. I said, man, awesome guy.
I'm just gonna
Gee,
stay out for a while.
What a neat, yeah. I said, this is, I like
Did you
this,
think
this
you
is
died?
neat. No, I knew it was happening. I passed out, but immediately, as I was in that, toward the pass out part,
Mhm.
I just, of course, once you're out, he's got that design too. I mean, well, that'd be messy if he didn't have that design, so you wouldn't have pain when you're out.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, so definitely God can work to see his will come to pass in many different avenues according to our faith.
Amen.
I'd rather have a healing by God than the doctor
I'd
anytime.
rather have it and see, and we talk about
Anytime.
we talk about healing, but his will is divine
Right.
health.
Just stay healthy.
Just stay healthy.
Exactly.
Stay healthy.
Just stay healthy. So I'm in a place where I don't need healing because I am walking in divine
Amen.
health.
Amen.
That's his will.
Yeah, I just refuse to receive it. No
Mhm.
way.
That's right.
But
So,
it is scary when I passed out. I passed out since then, like, from hurting myself.
mhm,
Fell on the kitchen floor. I knew what was going on. I knew what was happening.
mhm.
My wife's talking to church people. They're all scared that I had a heart attack or something. So there was kind of I said, okay, I don't want that to happen again. So when I hurt myself now, I'll take ibuprofen,
Mhm.
just to get by so I don't end up passing out because it scares everybody after that. You know, I don't want to be scaring people.
Mhm.
But lots of years ago,
Especially your wife.
Right.
well, she
Right.
knows me by, well, she learned way back when I was a Navy. If I say, do not call a doctor, she won't. I mean,
Mhm.
but she knew me enough to.
Right.
you
So
know,
this, so faith and unbelief come by hearing. Point
Yes.
C. Maybe you ought to change your lifestyle to fit the word. Now
Amen.
that's a strong
Amen.
statement. Change your lifestyle to fit the word instead of trying to fit the word into your lifestyle.
Amen.
Andy taught me a lot with all those testimonies he has. With the people, you know, I mean, you're deaf, they're inches away from death and everything. And I said, every one of these, the common thing about it is they divorce everything else except they soak themselves
In the word.
the whole
Exactly.
time.
That's it. That's it. And see, and the thing about it is, well, we want to get to a place where that becomes our lifestyle. We're constantly in fellowship with him, practicing the presence of God. And you know, that don't mean that you know you got to stay in the closet and pray in tongues for 10 hours a day. But you're practicing the presence of God. He's his presence among you is always a constant reality.
Yes.
That's what we want to get to.
Yes.
Where it's it's a lifestyle, not the promise box Christianity.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like a Christian fortune cookie. You go to the promise box, you pick one out. Oh, glory to God, bam. You know, you go, you read it. I'm healed, hallelujah. And then you go out the door, and then you're hearing 10, 15 hours worth of unbelief. Who gonna win? Who gonna win? That 30 seconds I spent looking at the promise, or that 10, 15 hours of unbelief? Look at point 3. It says, this woman in Mark 5 was committed that she was going to receive something from God.
There wasn't any doubt.
She was committed. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall. And she didn't say maybe.
That's right.
She said, I shall
That is a
be
legal word.
whole. I shall be whole. She spoke her faith and then acted on it. In order to act on her faith, she had to overcome what other people thought. Now, this is a big one. She had to overcome what other people thought. Let's go to John 5. John 5, look at verse 44. Okay. It says, how can ye believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that cometh from God alone? I'm reading New Living Translation. It says, no wonder you can't believe, for you gladly honor each other, but you don't care about the honor that comes from the one who alone is God.
It's the Pharisees that wanted the best seats in the room, and yeah.
Now let's look at point C. if you are afraid of other people and what they're going to say, it'll hinder your faith. How real is that?
That story that Andrew told about the woman for whom he prayed who had the cancer, and then she went to the doctor, and he
Yeah.
wanted her to get radiation.
Right.
We were talking about on the way here. We have an acquaintance, one we prayed for. Ronnie met her at our house
Mhm.
and helped us pray for her. Back in the fall, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and they gave her no time,
Mhm.
right? But she got into the Word, took it for some. I mean, she's still alive, but her kids put so much pressure on her to go get chemo, and she didn't have peace about it.
Mhm.
But she went and did it anyway, and it almost killed her. So we had the privilege of praying for her again 2 weeks ago, and part of what the Lord gave me for her was that she had to be released of the guilt that she felt. She felt so guilty, even though she had repented, that she had gone to the doctor
She put
in
what
that
the
case.
kids desire over what the Lord was telling
And the
her.
kids did say to her, "Mom, we're done. You do what you," because they saw what happened to her. They said, "You do it your way. You know, we're not going to put any more demands on you." But that's the kind of same example.
Right. Exactly.
Because that doctor told
She's
her that
had to-
chemo would only help her live 3 more weeks.
She's had to now completely recover from chemo. So
Because chemo, man, I mean, you're sick anyway, and then you're going to dump a bunch of poison in, so that's really,
but she succumbed to her 4 sons and what they thought she should do instead of following her peace.
That happens a lot.
yeah, that's, especially with older people, you got kids take over. Sometimes they say, sign on the line here, and then the kid can do it whatever they want, you know, when you make them a steward of your health.
Well, now you gotta have faith to not be having a side effect from chemo.
Right. But this
That's
one,
it, that bring up an interesting point, because if we're gonna be prepared, we gotta have that kind of stuff off of the past. I'm going, because now you get, my age, and the doctor says, well, you're gonna live a long life.
How old are you?
Hmm?
How old are you?
Won't give you one,
Huh?
how old I am, but I'll give you when I was born, and you can do the math.
I thought only women did that.
I was born in 1942.
Oh, okay, I was born
Now you
in
can do the math.
46.
but this
My
is
wife sent me a card, she's birthday card.
Mhm.
I know you're older than her, but you're still on this side of it.
That's cute.
No,
That's cute.
I heard a guy tell me when he heard how old I was, he said, when you get up in the morning and you do this, if you don't knock on wood, he said, you're all right. You're not in the casket.
Oh.
yeah. But this one here, this is a big. It's underestimated how the effect of other people's opinions,
Mhm.
how we weigh them versus what
Mhm.
God's word says, and this is why it's so important to have people of faith around you, people that are believing God.
When I first got saved, I was witnessing to everybody. And all my friends were drug addicts.
Mhm.
And I would witness to them, and they would look at me and say, you don't really believe that, do you? Man, that's like fairy tales or comic books. And even though I knew what happened to me, I could feel that tugging on my faith. You know, those words? You could sense it trying to undermine what you believe in.
And for that very reason, we have to be careful. We don't just share. When they send out prayer chains, I don't like that because you don't know the people who are praying for you.
Or how they're
and then
praying.
a lot of times it's just gossip. It becomes a gossip chain, and they're making your symptoms worse. You know what I'm saying? I think we have to be
If Bob was
careful.
here, he would know they would be praying, just touch. You know? Just touch him, Lord, just touch him.
It's not easy to get out of it, because then you're in a politically correct arena or Churchilly correct, whatever.
Ooh, that's good.
And
That's
they wanna
word.
pray for you.
That's word.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Now, you could just
Well,
go to another
it's your
church.
life,
I mean, it's over.
right?
It's
Yeah.
over with that group, because
Yeah.
they're gonna live where they are, and you just
Yeah.
upset, you upset the apple cart. I mean, it's not their
Persecution
fault.
for the word's sake.
And they just
That's right.
ignorant, they don't know.
PC.
No, I
You
think
use the
that's
word politically correct.
Mhm.
that's something that, the culture is using to muzzle the preaching of the word, the PC.
And to muzzle anything they don't want to hear.
The PC, that whole politically correct thing. You don't want to offend the other person, so you gotta just tone it down a little bit. All that believe in God is okay, but
But we even
just
have
tone
CC
it down.
church culture.
No, but this
Right.
is, he said this is big for me because I've had that. Actually, this group has helped me with that, as far as the opinions and stuff like that. And so I've really had to fight against that, trying to please people versus honoring God for what His Word says. So, but it's 100% better now, but it still comes against you.
Well, you gotta live with the people.
Right?
Give yourself a few years. You get to the place where you don't care what people think.
I'm getting there.
I'm there.
I'm getting there.
But it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah. And I pray not to be. I don't want to be arrogant with it. Because I don't want to cross that line. I'm so arrogant, and I'm like, okay, just don't care. But yet, I want to get to the place
You don't even
where
have to
it's
fight it
like,
back. You can just dust it off
Yeah,
when they get done talking and walk away, and it doesn't affect you at
but
all.
I'm now in the place where I'm like, okay, if you don't agree, I'm
So
not
what?
backing off of it.
Right.
No, I'm with
You
you.
know?
Yeah.
Had a question. Just, I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not saying this is what I believe, I'm saying this question just came to me and I thought, when we pray amiss, we get, I mean, unless you're actually agreeing with the devil, when you just don't do it right, you get no results. So are those people who are well-meaning, just touching Lord people, are they really hindering what, unless it convinces you to not do what you believe? I mean, are they really though somehow in the spirit realm causing harm?
In that respect, I would say is neutral.
That's
Okay.
what I was thinking.
Is neutral because the person is not necessarily, they're not contradicting the word, but they're not agreeing
Right.
with the reality of the word.
Right. And you're not getting any good results, but
It's not like some,
witchcraft or something.
yeah, it's not like a witchcraft prayer that is going against what we're believing for manifestation for. So it's different. So, and when we talk about the prayer chain and how people can hinder,
Yeah.
here's an example. Let's say you tell somebody, hey, like say your cousin is dealing with cancer, okay? Say stage 3. All right. You tell so and so. Now so and so believes the word. They're strong in their faith. All right. But let's say so and so tells Brother Cantaloupe. Brother Cantaloupe is he's one of the touch him Lord people. Okay. He's so when he prays, he's not gonna contradict or hinder the move of God, but he's not adding any real agreement to it.
Right.
Brother Cantaloupe tells Sister Cantaloupe. Say Sister Cantaloupe is gossip. She doesn't believe in healing. Okay. Sister Cantaloupe tells 10 other people in the church. All 10 of those folks don't really believe the word. Okay. Now you got a bunch of folk in that community of faith, right, that are doubting the manifestation of what you're agreeing for. Okay. So that's how there can be some interference or hindrance, because you got people that are actively doubting, And this person, the cousin, is going around meeting and greeting these folks.
Mhm.
He's going to Sunday school.
Right.
They might work. He might work with some of them, and they're talking to him.
Mhm.
You know.
So these are the people that Jesus would say, get out of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ministers that I really love, and I've followed them for a long time, they never put their personal health out there for everybody to pray for. They have a certain select
Mhm.
people around them that they can trust, and they're the only ones that get that information. And I kind of agree with that. You know?
Mhm.
Use the prayer line. You got, Andrew's number,
Mhm.
call. I mean, these people are praying, they're praying in faith.
Mhm. Yeah, I would trust him. I used to work there. So definitely.
Well, that's what Jesus died for, and some of these things, I've learned to not, for some reason, decades ago, I rarely prayed anything but thank you, Jesus, it's already done. And I didn't even know what I was doing. And now I'm getting teaching and everything on the finished work, and don't bother praying. Why go to God to pray and ask him to do something he's already done?
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why
And
you're
most
your
of the
age
prayers-
and in good shape.
Well, most of the prayers
Yep.
are,
Thanksgiving.
thank you,
Yes.
Jesus.
That is one of the greatest acts of faith, is to give thanks, just to be thankful, to praise him, because you're not looking at what it looks like in from this perspective with these eyes. You're looking at it from your heart's eye, the spirit man's eyes. So you're in a position where you're thankful because you're trusting that it's already done. So regardless of what I see, I'm giving you thanks for it.
You're in a place of victory. rather
You
than
you're laying claim to the victory that's already been won.
And you can get there long before you see it.
Mhm.
You can get there and be thanking God for the answer long before the answer comes. Because you've already received it, you just haven't seen it.
Mhm. So that's why when we talk about walking in the tangible blessing of God, it is so vital for us to watch what we're hearing and watch what we see, who we associate with, because it's so many things that are so many voices that are contrary. And the subtle thing about it is it doesn't have to be a directly contrary voice. It could be what
My mind, my mind not renewed yet.
maybe God, maybe it's not his will necessarily to heal you right now. Maybe, have you considered the lesson you're supposed to learn? That type of stuff, very subtle, sounds spiritual, right? But it is an avenue for unbelief to flourish.
And we have a substantial witness that by his stripes we're healed. So it's his will to heal everybody all the time. If you're walking down the street and see somebody that's sick or limping or whatever, you're always in God's will to go pray for them.
And sometimes we can get weird with it. Like I was telling my kids and my wife, and like last week at Costco, the power just shut out.
Mm.
Cash, everything just went down. And then one day the Christian said, "Well, maybe God trying to teach you something." I said, "What is he trying to teach you about shutting the power down?" He said, "Tell me, what is he trying to teach us?" Well, I don't know. Everything happened for a reason. I said, the reason is the power.
An audience.
This is what you do. You say, this is how he teaches here. Because there are people saying he teaches sickness and teaches to all kinds of stuff.
I was like, what are you talking about? He's not trying to teach us about the power being shut down.
Remember
What
the
are you
old,
talking about?
anybody here is old enough to remember the old 8 balls? You had them and managed to,
You shake it and it'll give a
then
message,
you
right?
float up and
Yeah.
something. that-
Today's your
you
lucky
spit
day
it
or
in,
something.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Seance.
The religious people have their own 8 balls. They pick it and then come out with stuff like that.
Wow.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like,
Wow.
where'd that come from? Well, that's what they're
Yeah,
taught.
another
That's what
quote
they're
said,
taught. Must be God's will if that happens.
yeah, another quote was we had a young lady that died, years ago, and it just so happens that was her birthday. So they say, well, maybe she shut it off. I can't make this
Yeah.
stuff up.
No, you can't.
Wouldn't you like him to give
can't.
names, so when we go
Yeah.
through the checkout lines, we can look over these people?
But I'm not making this. That's just. I'm like,
Well, my
I
mind,
look at everybody differently now when I go through Costco.
our mind's gotta be renewed. I look at something like that and,
But I think that
Kills
kind
the
of comes
princess.
from
They don't have any
people
faith
who
yet.
are, you know, people over spiritualize everything.
Yeah.
And these people are just learning, and you hear those things, and they're trying to seriously, you know, apply things.
There were
And
people
so
that can preach
they
the
said
stuff.
nothing can happen without God. These, you know, you say these truths. That's what I was saying the other week. And then people begin to apply them to everything.
I thought of one of
And they
those.
get in those moments that they
There's a reason for everything.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's what
That's
I
what
said. Pretty
we
soon
say.
they apply it to everything.
You
So
hear
that
that,
would
right?
Yeah.
be
You
a
hear that? Oh,
reason.
there's a reason for everything.
Yeah, that's what they say. Everything, you know,
Everything happens for a reason.
So it's a
right?
good
So,
learning, you know, a good teaching moment.
I like the ones that say all things work together for good. Now they don't say for a Christian and called according to his purpose. They'll talk about a mass murder and say, well, everything will work out for good. Thinking, no, it won't.
Yeah, when you taking little bits and pieces of stuff, and you taking a little mysticism here, a little Eastern religion here, put a little Christian little bow on it, and you come out with these little phrases and sayings that are contrary to what the word says. You know, the whole que sera thing,
Yeah.
whatever will be. What does
God
that
helps
mean?
those who helps themselves.
Themselves, as if Moses quoted that.
Right.
I heard a lady gave me a scripture reference with that. She said, God helps those who helps themselves. Ezekiel 37:14. And I'm thinking,
Well, it
You
is
are
a
so
little bit of
crazy, lady.
Proverbs.
Huh?
Those are like principles of Proverbs. You know, you
but,
work
but,
towards
but there's no
things, you
quote
do
like
this,
that
you
in
do
scripture
that.
anywhere.
But that
But
isn't
it's
but see
the
that scripture is in direct violation to the grace message,
Yeah.
That's
to
right.
the grace of God, righteousness by faith, by grace through faith.
Can't earn it.
I can't earn nothing.
Uh-uh.
All I can do is get now. Once
All you do is
I
receive it.
once I receive it, all I can do is get myself in position to manifest or to bear out what He already has given me by grace.
But see, again, you're doing something. And all I'm saying is that when we try to like exclude, it's like just dealing with what the people are trying to do and what they're trying to understand.
Mhm.
Yeah, you should be about doing things. You should be about being wise. You should be about working for God. You should be about these things, and He will be there with you because righteousness exalts a nation.
Right.
Those are actions and beliefs and everything. So it's not like it's like crazy. It's just, it's not
But
like
it's a
this is
mixture.
only. It's a mixture,
It's
but
a
I'm
mixture.
saying that's what
And
I
that-
said.
The
We
and
have
mixture is
lots of
dangerous.
that.
Yeah.
The mixture is
The mixture is
dangerous.
always
But at
poison.
the same thing, it's like, yeah, you should be about God's business. He'll be there with
So
you.
it's being able to appreciate
Yeah. As opposed to doing nothing.
being able to appreciate, okay, everything that I have and all that I am is based on God's grace. And for me to experience that and for me to live a life that is reflective of who He is, my faith has to connect with His grace. And faith without works is dead.
And faith is a result of that grace.
It is, yes.
Because of your gratitude. You want to do something for God,
Mhm.
and you know you're not earning your way.
Yeah, because the acts of righteousness, righteous acts are righteous acts. But the thing is, what's the motivation behind it? What's the power behind it? That's the difference between works of righteousness and dead works. Because you got a lot of good moral folk that are doing good things
But they're doing them out of their flesh.
out of their
And it's
flesh.
not an act of the Holy Spirit.
And it's not, because you got people that they not saved, but they doing real bunch of good stuff.
But don't over spiritualize things because I'm saying, like, I look at this entire nation and it was built on Christian principles and foundations, and God has blessed this nation richly. People did a lot of fleshly things with, you know, the way they were raised back then. It was like you go to church, you got the fire and brimstone, and you go out and you try to live according to this, and you work hard, again, helping those who help themselves. They believed in that, and they did it, and they were successful, but they were trying to be righteous with what they understood of God's
Well,
word.
with the light
And
they
it
had
was
at the
really
time.
raised up.
But they had a certain amount of revelation, and as time goes by, we keep getting more
And
revelation.
we lose it too. It
Well,
goes in a circle because we're
mo-
just
mo-
as
most people that
dull
start
as we
walking
can
in
be
it-
in a lot of
Most
things.
people that start walking in revelation stay with it because it's exciting, and it's rare. The people that are just trying to work their way, they're the ones that lose it, I think.
I even see like with us in America, it's like today we think we're so educated and
Well, what's the
knowledgeable
word
and stuff,
say?
and we're like
Few are those who are going to go
We're
through the
like-
narrow gate.
getting over and
Well, we
On
could
the
we could
downside of
we could
things.
because there's some other things that could be said
it's
about
like, it's like
about the
we're walking in the
about the
flesh.
nation and about people's behavior and all that.
But that's what people are asking about.
But the thing about it is, in the context of what we're talking about here,
Okay.
all right, it's just our focus is to honor what God has done,
Amen.
and as we do that, the works are gonna follow.
Mhm.
The works are gonna follow because we are honoring Him for who He is. Yeah, out of our appreciation for what He's done for us, it's the motivation that's gonna help us to live lives that reflect who He is. Because look at point C. It says, if you're afraid of other people and what they're going to say, it'll hinder your faith. And Proverbs 29:25 says, the fear of man bringeth a snare. The fear of man bringeth a snare. That's strong. Fear of man bringeth a snare.
I saw a man this morning. He prayed for a lady who had cancer, and the cancer came off in his hand. When she went to her church and told the pastor that, look, the cancer on my face is gone, I went and had somebody pray for me. The cancer fell off, and the pastor looked at her and said, even though I'm saying it, I don't believe it, and you're not welcome here anymore. Now imagine that. And
Good
Terry,
service, maybe his church will close down.
well, Terry and I
Or
were
will
talking
change.
about it, and I said, you don't have
Why?
to. That pastor doesn't have any power. And if that lady goes there and starts telling everybody, they're going to want him to pray for them, and he'll be lost. You know.
That's tough. That's tough. But the sad thing is, that stuff it
Happens.
happens. Man.
Mhm.
It's tough, and that's why when Paul prays for boldness, that's what we need.
Mhm.
That's something that I want to see more manifest in my own life. It's just that boldness in the face of what the culture says is right.
Mhm.
Because in spite of what is politically correct, God's word is paramount, regardless of what laws are passed, regardless of what society's opinion is, or regardless of what mainstream church's opinion is.
Mhm.
What does His word say? That's final authority. And the more time, I'm telling you, the more time we practice His presence and spend time around like-minded believers, we can see more
Yes.
of Him manifest in our personal lives and around us. Point D says you must believe with all your heart. And I like Romans 3:4 says, let God be true, but every man a liar.
I use that verse much.
Let God be true, and every man a liar.
Every man, it would be us. Look, if we go against God's word.
Yeah, that's the key.
Mhm.
Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ.
Mhm.
Right?
Be imitated.
Be imitators. He says you can't harbor reservations and fears. This one here. This is
Wait
why
a minute, what's these?
you can't harbor
Could you amplify that a little bit?
Yeah, we can
reservations
do
and fears. Okay, reservations. When somebody
Hesitate.
hesitation. Like say if there's a decision to be made, I make the decision, but I have reservations about it. That means there's some hesitation. There's doubt. That's where he's using that word. That's the context of that word reservations there.
that.
If somebody's sitting in the corner and won't enter in, they'll say he's reserved,
How do
which
you
is the
harbor
root
it?
of that
How do you
reservation.
harbor it?
Harbor meaning keep it in.
Protect anything?
Yeah, keep it in your port, in your heart, to keep it, to hold on to it.
It's like a boat that's anchored.
Just like if you go to the harbor, you have boats that are anchored to the docks.
Okay, our new identity, which we've accepted Christ as our Savior,
Mhm.
is what?
Hmm?
Thank you, Jesus. You made me the righteousness of God in you. So our identity, our new identity, that we should be taking ownership of, is righteousness. This term right here on E,
Mhm.
the righteous part of us, this is not applicable. Now, our mind still does that, so we have to renew our mind, but the righteousness part of us, because we're made righteous,
Mhm.
cannot harbor reservations and fears.
Right. For we have not been given a spirit of fear, or in a power, love, and a sound mind. So the fear and the reservations, the doubt, is coming against what? So mind, will, and emotions.
It's coming from your soul.
Now, what's the greatest fear that has to be conquered? The fear of death. When you are no longer afraid of death, Satan cannot hold anything over you.
Mhm.
No sickness or disease can even phase you because
Well, you can still eat our lunch and pop the bag while we're living here.
I mean, but we have
Deficit
to overcome that fear of death because he uses that
Oh.
continuously.
Well, that
Yeah.
hasn't been used.
And when you think about who we are, everything God told Jesus he was, Jesus told us we are. Like he said, God told Jesus he's the light of the world. Jesus told us we're the light of the world. And
Mhm.
God told Jesus, he said, you and I are one. And Jesus said, Jesus and us are one. So we're one in him. He's one in God. So, all that stuff. And you start thinking about that, and you start saying, wow, look at who I am.
We're
You
it.
know? Yeah.
But there's I think it's like the two fears. There's a fear of the death to conquer, but there's also the fear of living and all the things you experience in living, with your family and your everything that you deal with, your jobs, your finances,
So I
your
was just
neighbors,
speaking
your
mostly in
dogs,
terms of
Yeah.
healing.
and
That's
that's
what,
healing.
just healing.
Oh, okay,
Come around
okay.
my way. I
Yeah.
love living. I have fun
No.
every day.
Yeah, I was just
I'm
talking
saying-
about healing. That's
Yeah.
where the enemy uses that fear of death the most. And if you've conquered that, because when we close our eyes,
Yeah.
your flesh is left behind, but you didn't die.
Mhm.
You're as alive as you've ever
Yeah,
been.
that's another thing, it's already been conquered.
Yes.
My issue is focusing on my identity. What is my identity?
You're the righteousness
And if
of God in Christ. You're
Here-
one with Christ in
here-
God. I mean, that's a
he-
huge identity.
I mean, that's what he made me. He was made sin for the sins of the world, and I was made righteous.
And you have
Now,
to
I don't
establish
know
that in your
what
renewed mind,
translation
and then not
is the
let
problem then?
your soul come against it. That's the big deal.
There's my mind getting renewed. Got a problem? Well, my mind isn't renewed yet. And I'm learning that it's not going to be as
Does
I
it
can't
does it
understand.
ever get there 100%? I don't know.
well. It
The
does
soul
pretty
still
good.
pops up from
We
time
sit
to
on a
time.
chair. We can look at the chair and tell whether or not it's going to collapse when we sit on it. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of things we do. We don't have to go, oh Lord, should I
We don't
live
question
in
that
that?
kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of the Lord, because they're foolishness to him.
Let's go to Philippians 3.
Philippians?
Philippians chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 12.
For the natural man.
Looking pretty what?
Verse 12. But you know what? No. I'm going to start at I'm going to start at verse 5. Okay. So this is the Apostle Paul here, and he is talking about his fleshly natural heritage and how he esteems, what level of esteem he has for it now after his relationship in relation to his relationship with Jesus. All right. and I'm gonna go all the way down to verse 14. I'm gonna read it in the New Living Translation because it makes it real plain. Okay. All right. This is Paul talking. He says, "I was circumcised when I was 8 years old. I'm a pure-blooded citizen of Israel and a member of the tribe of Benjamin, a real Hebrew, if there ever was one. I was a member of the Pharisees, who demand the strictest obedience to the Jewish law. I was so zealous that I harshly persecuted the church. And as for righteousness, I obeyed the law without fault." So look at it. In the natural, his resume is stacked. Okay. Verse 7. "I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done." And the King James says, "But what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Christ." Verse 8 in the New Living, it says, "Yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the intimate value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord." So what is he doing? He's honoring. This is honoring God above all else. This relationship is more important than anything else. All this stuff, my relationship with the Pharisees and all that, it's nothing. It's dumb. It's nothing. That's what he says.
He does.
And the King James says, "Yea, doubtless, I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung."
Dung is poo-poo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he said done.
Dung.
Yeah.
No, dung. Like
Okay.
manure.
Yeah, manure.
Doo-doo. That's what he counts it
Italians
as.
would say caca.
You can tell Julius has young kids.
That he said that I may win Christ. All right, let's look at verse 9. In the back in the New Living Translation, it says, "And become one with him. I no longer count my own righteousness through obeying the law. Rather, I become righteous through faith in Christ. For God's way of making us right with himself depends on faith. I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in his death, so that one way or another I will experience the resurrection from the dead." Let's look at verse 12. "I don't mean to say that I've already achieved these things or that I've already reached perfection, but I press on to possess that perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed me." In the King James, it says, "Not as though I had already attained, either were already perfect, but I follow after, if that I may apprehend that for which also I am apprehended of Christ Jesus." Verse
So
13.
he's saying, I'm chasing that which is chasing me, basically.
There you go. That's good. I like
Huh?
that. I like
Isn't
that.
that what he's saying?
I like that.
I'm chasing Christ and Christ is
Mhm.
chasing me.
Verse 13 says, "No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing." All right, one thing. "Forgetting the past, looking forward to what lies ahead, I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us." In the King James, it says, "I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus." So we say that Paul had his priorities straight, right?
That's a whole doing section. What you're talking about the doing, the whole section is a good
Mhm.
explanation of doing.
All right. He's pressing towards the mark.
"Be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as you have us for an example." So he's saying, do what I do.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people saying, don't do what I do what I say. You know?
Right. And I know on Saturday, this past Saturday, I was talking about discipleship and how true discipleship is someone partaking of who you are Like you see how Jesus, the disciples dwelt with
right.
Jesus. They not only received the teaching, they saw the works. So the word was constantly being confirmed for them. So they were discipled by him. They didn't only get the teaching, they saw the works. They saw the life being lived out in front of
And
them.
the Romans saw that because when they started calling them Christians, it meant little Christ.
Mhm.
And they saw it in those guys.
And Paul talked about it. You know, you have many instructors in Christ. There are many people that try to teach you something, they try to show you something, they'll lecture you. But there are few fathers.
And there's a huge contrast I see too in just looking at Christ and looking at like what Paul was doing and what he said even before, like he did everything. He was blameless, which is concerning the righteousness which is in the law. Blameless. So that means he did follow everything that a
Yes.
good Christian boy should do or a
Good
Jewish
Jewish
boy
boy,
should
yeah,
do.
yeah.
But then when you look at Christ, but you didn't say don't go and not do a lot of those things, you know, honor God and everything, your mother and father. But it was just a twist, and that's what I see in Christ. I just see a relaxation, if you will. And he wasn't focused on all the things that we focus on
Well, it went from
sometimes.
works to grace.
Yeah, but I'm saying it was all about the grace and that and the spirit and trusting God and being about the things he told you to be about.
Mhm.
And it wasn't all those other things added on like a law, if you will. It wasn't like a law. Like we try to make things like a law for people again and just replace it with things we do today. It's about like when Jesus, I just see him as being, when he was with people, he was relaxed. You know what I'm saying? And he was enjoying himself and enjoying the people. And he wasn't so uptight about everybody being in line. Like the Pharisees did, they were that way. And
Right.
everyone tried to live up to it. But with Jesus, there was a grace. There was a graciousness.
Right.
Not that he didn't speak to our hearts to do things, but it wasn't that law.
It wasn't law.
It was like,
It was
you want to
because
be around it.
you see how external laws,
Mm-hmm.
man in his own strength trying to live up to external
Yes.
laws will always fail.
Always.
You're gonna fall short.
The
Because
shift is from doing to being.
being
If somebody starts
Mhm.
preaching don't, the majority of people that hear that are going to do.
right. Because God's standard is God's standard. You know, the law, what did Paul say? The law is holy.
Mm-hmm.
The law ain't the issue, it's our flesh is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So how did God resolve that? By placing his very
We're good.
season, his very spirit
We're
through the
good.
work of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
placing his very spirit on the inside of us. So now the only thing that is hindering the manifestation of the spirit now is this thing here. The renewing of the mind.
And the Lord had to have faith in us that the grace message would produce righteousness and works in us, and not where we're going to run off and sin and say I'm covered in grace.
Mhm.
I mean, he had to have faith in us that we're going to do the right thing with the grace message, because there's a real opportunity there to blow it, you know.
But, and even that, like I said, some people, if they do, they're not reading the Bible. You know what I'm saying? When they do that, they're not reading it. But it is it's not a legislated type of thing like the law. It doesn't just replace it with what the culture
Yeah, when you
says.
start saying I'm the righteousness of God, I'm going to heaven, and you say all this stuff, I don't deserve any of it. It's all a gift,
It's a gift.
and I have to receive it. You start saying this is too good to be true. This really is too good to be true.
Well, that's why we always add in him, so we
Yeah.
should, so that people don't get confused. I'm the righteousness of God
In Christ Jesus.
Mhm.
In Christ
Otherwise,
Jesus.
well, you know, it's just,
Well, it's like
Fairly
get to know
confusing.
Christ. You know, that's it. Like, get to know Christ and let him dwell in you.
But I've heard it say, well, we got more confidence in what we do for God than what God has done for us.
Exactly. That's where the
Yeah,
focus
yeah, and that's
is.
what we're focusing on, what we can do for God, and God says, okay, now I want you to focus on what you did for me. And as you said, when you focus on what He did for you, out of that is gonna flow works. You're just gonna do it because you love Him,
Mhm.
and that's the motivation.
Right.
But
And
it's not.
there's a time in
Right.
people's course, and I'm just thinking that if you get to a certain age and your parents tell you what to do, then God, as you read His Word, He will bring you along in a way that you want to do all those things, and you're not doing things for other people. And that's what's wonderful. Like I remember one gentleman that used to come and I remember him sharing, he said he was in church and he had these young kids, they were young teenagers or 20-some years old or whatever. They would go out to the club on Saturdays
Mhm.
and they would come into church, he said, and they had their stamp on them. And he said he would get on them and say, how dare you ever go to the club or blah, blah, blah. I said, Lord, these are the kids that's coming in here. You know what I'm saying? They could have stayed at home, and they probably will if you try to keep putting those types of things externally on them. And so I said, Lord, these young 20-some-year-olds are coming to church. Wonderful. You know, God will speak to them in the right time.
When I got saved in
We
the
gotta teach them
70s,
who they are.
They know it's in the Bible.
when I got saved in the 70s, there was about 100 of us that went to a Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
And the people that went in there, they smelled like marijuana, they had hair down to the waist, they had barefoot.
Yeah.
And within 5 years, the majority of those guys were like deacons, elders, married, kids. And the pastor wasn't beating us up every week. He was just loving on us, and the change came.
That's it. The
change
internally,
just came.
and
Yeah.
they want to do these things. They
Yeah.
cast them off
Yep.
little by little, but they feel free. Unlike with the
Right.
priest, you know, that's why I think he took us out from under the priest. He could have left us under the priest and did what a lot of people do today. You know,
Well,
he could have left
Jesus
us
said, he said, my yoke is
under.
easy
My
Yeah.
burden
and my
is light.
burden is light.
Yes,
So
it's different. It's
life with
different.
life with Christ, he
Mhm.
bears the burden. That's why he tells us to cast our care upon him. Because why? Because he cares for us.
Yes.
We can do that because we believe in the integrity of his word, who he is, his love for us. And us partaking of his love for us is going to produce fruit of righteousness in our lives. And that's what we're talking about. But it's honoring him first, his word first. And when I can't honor him first by putting my works first place. Would me working at the soup kitchen?
Yeah, look
That's
at
not the issue.
me.
The issue is
Mhm.
his death, his burial, his resurrection. What he's done for me. That's the issue. Now me working at the soup kitchen, that's just me trying to be his hands and feet on the earth. That's all that is. We love him because he first loved us.
That's important.
Right? All right. So let's finish up this outline here. Number 4 says, as believers, exercising our authority, we don't just pick and choose and make God do certain things. No. All we do is enforce the laws he's already set in place. So we already know our position. We are spiritual law enforcement officers.
Amen.
We're not legislators. He's a legislator. We just enforce.
I think that verse in Samuel 2, the Lord said, those who honor me, I will honor. Well, honoring his word is honoring him. So when we honor his word honors us back by coming to pass.
That's right. That's right. Because we esteeming him first.
Mhm.
That's good. Point D, we discover what God has already provided, and how he said it works, and then we cooperate with and enforce those laws. So that's how we honor him.
Mhm.
We esteem his word higher than anything else. And those who honor him, he will honor. It's already built in. Is us partaking of the grace that he already has provided, things he's already provided by faith. All right, Facebook family, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.